Is Gaza an open-air prison? Let's find out what has happened in Gaza since 2005, which created this claim. It makes the Gaza Strip 40 kilometers from north to south and less than 11 kilometers from east to west. The Gaza Strip borders Israel in its north and east, and Egypt on its south. Although the Gaza Strip borders Egypt to the south, the thousands of Palestinian Arabs who escaped to Gaza were not allowed to become Egyptian citizens. From 1948 to 1967, Egypt controlled the Gaza Strip, but never annexed it, instead keeping it as a separate entity to highlight the expectation that Palestinian Arabs who had fled to Gaza would eventually return to what is now Israel. During the period of Egyptian control, from 1948 to 1967, Egypt restricted the movement of the Arabs of Gaza from the Gaza Strip into Egypt, keeping them from gainful employment and ensuring that Gaza remained poor and its inhabitants remained militant. If anyone wants to use the term Gaza ghetto, they need to recognize when this restriction began, from 1948 to 1967. The restriction on Gazans moving out of Gaza ended when Israel took control of Gaza in the 1967 war. Gazans were able to work in Israel. Gaza's economy grew by nearly 10% a year between 1967, when Israel took control of Gaza, and 1982. That's a figure I took from Wikipedia. Many Gazans worked as day laborers in Israel. Others worked in more skilled professions, including doctors from Gaza who worked in Israeli hospitals. The open border between Israel and Gaza ended in 2005. In that year, Israel withdrew all Israelis from Gaza, including soldiers and civilians, and handed Gaza over to the Palestinian Authority. How was movement in and out of Gaza supposed to operate when Israel withdrew? There was an international agreement signed in 2005 specifying that Gaza's border to Egypt would remain open. This was the Agreement on Movement and Access, known as the Rafah Agreement, and it was signed in November 2005. Brokered by the U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, the agreement provided that Gazans could cross from Gaza into Egypt and from Egypt into Gaza, under the supervision of the Palestinian Authority and Egypt. The European Union agreed to supervise the crossing from Gaza into Egypt, with the crossing to take place at the city of Rafah, half in Egypt and half in Gaza, with European Union monitors present. This was an international agreement among Israel, the Palestinian Authority, and Egypt, and it was supported by the United States and the European Union. It ensured that there would be access for the people of Gaza to Egypt, and from Egypt on to the rest of the world. Merchandise for Gaza would transit through Israel, but people would transit through Egypt. Again, this was an international agreement designed to ensure free access to the world for Gazans. Who wrecked this agreement? Well, it lasted until 2007. What happened in 2007? In 2007, the Hamas movement wrested control over Gaza from the Palestinian Authority after several long battles in which supporters of Hamas killed over 500 Arab supporters of the Palestinian Authority. And from that time, Gazans lost access to the outside world. Both Israel and Egypt closed their borders with Gaza. The European Union border monitors, who were supposed to supervise the border between Egypt and Gaza, ran away in fear of Hamas. And I quote here from Wikipedia, Palestinian sources reported that European Union monitors fled the Rafah border crossing on the Gaza-Egypt border for fear of being kidnapped or harmed. And one can well understand why they did that. Egypt never again opened its border with Gaza, which has now remained shut for all 16 years of Hamas control of Gaza. Only those who can prove that they intend to travel on from Egypt have been able to cross the border from Gaza into Egypt and then on. For a very brief period in 2021-2022, Gazans who had special work permits were able to work in Israel. That arrangement, of course, ended by October 7, 2023. And despite frequent hostilities, until October 7, 2023, more than 100 trucks a day would transport merchandise from Israel into Gaza, bringing building supplies, food and fuel, this despite frequent hostilities between Israel and Gaza. But since October 7, 2023, not a single truck has entered Gaza from Israel. Wonder why that happened? Wonder why Gaza became an open-air prison? Wonder why the Egyptian border was closed? Perhaps you should ask Hamas.